The Democrats are ready to cross Trump's red line. In fact, they are going after Trump's tax returns. Pelosi saying Democrats will take the first steps towards obtaining the president's tax returns. The incoming chairman of the tax panel will insist Trump release them, confirming the news that already broke on election night.
We have some news on that front. Our friend Ari Melber has been doing some reporting in terms of what to expect now that the Democrats seem assured of control in the House. Ari.
That's right, Rachel. I've spoken to a senior Democratic source on the Ways and Means Committee who says tonight, breaking news, they do intend to request President Trump's tax returns.
All right, so that fight is coming, and it is coming now from all sides. This New Yorker headline today, incoming intelligence chair Adam Schiff plans to obliterate Trump's red line, vowing to probe Trump's personal finances and get his bank records. All of this coming as Mueller and federal prosecutors eye Trump's family business. And Michael Cohen breaks his silence on what really went on behind closed doors inside the Trump organization.
He's saying very clearly that he never directed you to do anything wrong. Is that true?
I don't think there's anybody that believes that. First of all, nothing at the Trump organization was ever done unless it was run through Mr. Trump.
All right, joining me now, we have E.J. Dionne, MSNBC contributor and columnist for The Washington Post. E.J., great to have you with us this evening.
Great to be with you.
Let me first get your reaction to this move by the Democrats to insist on going after Trump's tax returns right out the gate.
Well, I think it's the right thing to do, and I think it's important that they begin by putting this in the right context, which is this is not a fishing expedition. They are simply asking Trump to live up to a norm that every president since the Nixon years has lived up to in putting out his tax returns. It's something that was expected because the American people have a right to know what conflicts of interest might this person have. Did this person pay their taxes properly? We asked potential cabinet officials to give all kinds of information to Congress, and yet Trump is saying, I don't have to give up anything. Now, it's also true, as your lead-in suggested, that there may be a lot to learn here about whether Trump is in violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, perhaps. Has he done business with foreign entities in the past that he might be paying back now? I make an assumption here. I'm just saying what we could learn. We could learn some things that would affect the Russia probe. We might even learn if Trump is as rich as he says he is.
Okay, fair enough. All those points are totally valid, especially the conflict of interest. But legally speaking, how can they go about getting them beyond just simply requesting? Obviously, if they request it, they are not going to get it. So is there anything they can do to compel him or compel agencies to provide those tax returns?
Well, I think they can subpoena the tax returns. Certainly, I think they can assert that Congress does have a right to see these things and cite precedent of all the other times that Congress has gotten tax returns on request. But I suspect that this will be fought out in court. One assumes that Robert Mueller has seen some of these tax returns, so we might see them anyway. But again, I think it's important that they keep underlining this principle that this is something not only Congress, but citizens and voters have a right to look at.
And so how does President Trump then push back against this? I mean, is there a legal defense for him to make that this is private and that he does not offer these? Or is this too much of a, as you said, public inquiry at this point that it could be a critical piece of the puzzle?
Well, he's used the excuse he's under audit, but he seems to have been under audit forever, and that didn't stop him from releasing returns that weren't under audit. He can argue, I suppose, some kind of executive privilege, and as you suggest, he may argue some kind of privacy, but I'm not sure it's a public fight that will do him much good, because you can point back other Republicans like George W. Bush, well, they may not have been happy to do it, but they were certainly willing to release their tax returns. But I suspect he'll use any means at his disposal to try to prevent it.
Yeah, and I think the central question people are always asking is, what is the president hiding by not releasing these tax returns? E.J. Dionne, thank you so much.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.